Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net. I just came back from Hartford Comic Con. This year was the very first Hartford Comic Con, and let me tell you something, I got a lot to say about this particular event. As I said, this was the first Comic Con. It took place in the XL Center in Hartford, Connecticut, pretty much in my neck of the woods. There were vendors, there were artist alleys, there were panels, there was a live League of Legends tournament, photos, autographs, and it had one hell of a display of stuff to show off, which I'll get into in just a little bit. The event took place on Saturday and Sunday, I believe it was May 31st and June 1st. Well, I had a great time. I was really happy to be invited to the event, and I got a lot about the event to say. Immediately when you walked into the XL Center, you were greeted by the original Batmobile from the 1960s Adam West series, the original Bat Cycle with this Robin sidecar, the Bat Pod from the 2008 Dark Knight movie, and the Black Beauty from the Green Hornet 2011 film. So immediately, I've not seen that in a Comic-Con. At least I've not seen that kind of thing happening at Comic-Cons over here. That kind of thing I typically see at like E3 or something like that. In fact, actually, I just found out that E3 is going to have a Batmobile of its own. They've actually made the real Batmobile, or a real version of the Batmobile from the new Batman Arkham Knight game. West Coast Customs made. They're going to show that at E3 this year. So, but typically at a Comic-Con, I haven't seen that kind of thing. I've never seen the original. I used to watch the original Batman show when I was a kid. And I used to watch the reruns of it whenever it would be on television. I loved the original Adam West Batman movie. I used to watch it a lot as a kid. It was one of the first Blu-rays I ever picked up. Here I was seeing the Adam West Batmobile and the Adam West Bat Cycle. Really excited to see that. Awesome way to kick off the show. Like, oh, here you are. Welcome to the XL Center. Here's the Batmobile. Oh, here's the Bat Cycle. Welcome. Oh, here's Black Beauty. Oh, here's the Bat Pod. Come on in. Awesome. Great, you know, that's a great way to have a very welcoming presentation. Once you got into the event, it was packed. It was packed wall to wall with people. There was a huge artist alley. They took up like half of one of the halls was just made up of the artist alley. Gosh, I can't even. I have to kind of look at the program just to name everybody. I was there off the top of my head because there were so many guys. I believe Alvin Lee was there. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Yeah, Alvin Lee was there. Tim Solly was there. Dave Johnson, Ed McGuinness, Joe Benitez, Tom Hutchinson. Sorry I forgot your names, guys. There was just so many of you that I couldn't say. Really excited to see Alvin Lee there. He's kind of like one of those self-proclaimed, you know, I thought he was kind of like one of the, I've liked his work, so it was good to see him there. Obviously, Tim Sale being, is your, Tim? I'll just call him Tim. Tim was there, which was awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit about him when I start talking about the panels because I want to break news about this sort of thing, but we'll get into him in just a little bit. But it was really cool to see such a packed artist alley. As for the vendors, all kinds of vendors were there selling all kinds of crazy stuff. There was one guy who was selling anime Blu-rays, DVDs, video game art books and stuff like that. Some guys were selling, a lot of guys were selling collectibles and stuff like that. There was a group that was selling plushies of all kinds of different stuff. Nintendo plushies and things like that were being sold. Artists were selling work. You know, it's great. It was awesome. Amongst the artist alley and the vendors area, that was the majority of the space that was taken up. So most of the space that was there was devoted towards vendors booths and artist alley booths. If your favorite artist was there, it was a good chance you had a chance to talk to him, which I thought was really cool. There was a couple of cosplay competitions, a lot of people in costume. It was nice to see everybody in costume. There were also some organizations that were there, and I was happy to see them too. The Ghostbusters of Connecticut were there, along with some of the other organizations. They had brought the Ecto-1. Now, I don't know if it was the real Ecto-1. It sure looked like the real Ecto-1. They said it was the real Ecto-1. I thought that was awesome. They had a painting of Vigo. They were doing a charity at work there, actually, for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. When it came down to the panels, I think that for me personally, that was where the show really was. It was cool to see all the panels that they had together. The guy who played the Soup Nazi was making an appearance. He also signed autographs. But the coolest, a lot of people were actually really interested. I think the most popular panel was probably the Spartacus HBO panel. They had the cast of Spartacus there, which I thought was freaking awesome. That were, in fact, I think they even did a panel on Saturday as well, but they did a panel on Friday that was packed. I think they did a second panel on Saturday just because of how popular the panel Friday was. That was really exciting. There were other panels that were going on. There was a panel about how to get started with independent comics. There were a couple of panels, things. They actually said some really interesting tips. They said that traditionally, like the guys from the big publishers would actually go to Comic Cons a lot and scout for talent, actually. Like they'd be getting, like there'd be literally like large rooms at Comic Cons entirely with like talent scouts, like artist talent scouts, full to the brim of submissions. And they would literally spend the whole Comic Con going through all of these different submissions, basically, to pick out artists and stuff like that for future comics. I thought that was freaking awesome. It's nice to see that they actually are open to all of these new artists and talent like this. For me, I'm a writer, so I don't know if they take written submissions and stuff like that, but it was cool that they actually do open up for artists, so it was cool to see that. So any prospective artists that like to get their work out there, bring your work, bring a portfolio to Comic-Con. Be aware they will be, what's the word? What's the word I should use? They will be clear on how they feel about your work. They will be quite clear. Whether they love it or whether they hate it, they will tell you this works. They'll probably be constructive, though. They basically said, we will be constructive. Oh, you could work on this, or oh, you could work on this. Be prepared for that as well. You could work on this, you could work on that. So, hey, prospective artists, Comic-Con is certainly the place for you guys to go to. I didn't know if there's anything like that happening at Hartford, but it was kind of interesting to hear about that kind of news in one of the panels over there. As somebody who was interested in all different types of industries with that kind of stuff, it was nice to hear how people can break into that sort of thing. They also had a pretty wide smattering of different artists and different writers and stuff like that. The guys from Doctor Who did a panel, Matthew Dowspit and Blair Shedd. They had their own panel devoted strictly to Doctor Who. Lot of guys in cosplay. The majority of the stuff they talked about was kind of about their submissions and the history behind what they had to submit with the Doctor Who, the people who run the Doctor Who property. Basically, since they're working for a property, they have to submit all of their story ideas for acceptance or rejection. And since they've been Doctor Who fans for years and years and years and years, they knew that they were at no shortage of ideas, basically. There was certainly no shortage of ideas that they had. And they kind of were figuring after a while the reason why some of their story ideas were getting rejected were probably because the BBC was intending to do actual episodes involving those characters. And I believe that that shape-shifting creature with the suckers and stuff like that that were used in the 50th anniversary, they wanted to do something with that species for quite a while. And they had no idea why the stories with them kept getting rejected until they caught the 50th anniversary for themselves. Now they're told they could use them all they want. I think they were saving them for the 50th anniversary. I thought that was kind of cool. They were also talking about the heavy possibility of, in the future, a Lady Doctor. A lot of people were asking a question about doing a Lady Doctor. And unfortunately, they said that they can't do a Lady Doctor because there hasn't been a Lady Doctor at this point. However, obviously, I believe, obviously, Peter Capaldi will be is next in line to be the Doctor. So we'll have to wait until probably right after Capaldi, although even they've admitted, and BBC has admitted to them, they're ready to do, they're ready to do 12 more Doctors. There are literally, they've extended the lifespan of the Doctor by at least 12 at this point with the current storyline that they've got. So after Capaldi, who knows what will happen, basically, if Capaldi decides to leave for whatever reason. Basically, it's game on for who. They did admit, though, that they probably would have needed to cast the right lady for that sort of thing. But it's kind of interesting to hear about that. Me, obviously, since I'm from the video game industry, well, I'm a video game journalist. I can't really comment too much on Doctor Who. Maybe in the future we might see a Doctor Who video game or something. I thought that was kind of, for relevance for that. The one that I was really interested in seeing, probably my most exciting panel, and the panel that I wanted to see the most, was Tim Saleh's panel, actually. The great thing about Tim Saleh was I was a huge fan of a lot of his comics. In particular, I loved The Long Halloween. I loved Daredevil Yellow. In fact, I think I was the only person sitting in on that panel who probably read Daredevil Yellow. I really did like that series. Of course, he also did Spider-Man Blue. And a bunch of other ones. He also did the artwork, the background artwork that was used in the series Heroes, which I liked up until the third season. The third season was trash. I liked the first and second seasons just fine for Heroes. But the third season, I stopped watching midway. It was just trash. But that's not Tim's fault, of course. Tim really liked, he said that when it came down to career and stuff like that, and it came down to work he could do, he really liked his work with Heroes because you could see his work. Like, that was his work. That, it was clear. Granted, it was used in the background, but in a lot of cases there were episodes and story arcs devoted to a lot of his paintings that he had done. And it was just, he said it was awesome to see them used. They had to make a lot of copies of his work because, sometimes they get destroyed in takes and stuff like that because the script would demand it. So he'd make a work, make it look like, paint, because that's how his style is. And then it would be printed out onto canvas like 12 or so times, and they'd all be destroyed in takes or something like that. And he thought that was, that was kind of cool because you'd get to see him on TV. He has not. This was the first question I asked him. I know the NBC's planning on a Heroes revival. In some form. Tim, the first question I asked him was, Tim, he has not been asked about that. He says he has not been approached by any of the Heroes showrunners, so he is currently not involved in the Heroes series. So if any of you guys are Heroes fans interested in hearing of Tim, he says he has not been approached by the Heroes people. That's not to say he's against doing Heroes again. Obviously, it sounded like it was a good experience for him, but he said he has not been approached, so there's that. The question I specifically asked him, which was I think a big question I really wanted to ask him, was, of course, how did he feel about the use of his art style in video games? Tim unfortunately told me he does not actually play video games. Because, for example, like his Catwoman, for example, the Catwoman design that he used for The Long Halloween was specifically used as a DLC costume for Catwoman in Batman Arkham City. And I wanted to know how he felt about that. And unfortunately, he says, well, I really haven't played the games. I don't play video games in general, so I really can't comment on how they use my artwork. But he did mention that the possibility does exist, like DC has a benefit system in place. So let's say, for example, that your work ends up in another medium, the artist can get compensation for that, which I thought was kind of cool. I had no idea that kind of thing happened. I don't even think he did until they told him. He said he did not ask about that sort of thing. That information was, I think, told to him when I think they wanted to use some of his work or something. But yeah, apparently, if the Arkham developers decide to use any of his designs for Batman or Catwoman or Two-Face or something like that, he could get compensated for that, and he's fine. That I guess that's cool with him. But he doesn't play video games, which I thought was kind of disappointing. I would have loved to have seen what he thought of seeing his characters in 3D, and unfortunately, he didn't say. The panel rooms were dedicated. They had lines set up for the panel rooms so that, and they cleared the panels, the rooms after every panel. It wasn't like last time I did something like that. I think it was New York Comic Con back in I think 2012 or 2011's Comic Con. What they basically did at that time was they didn't clear the room, so every time a panel would happen, you could stay in the room and watch the next panel. And in this venue, they did clear the rooms every time, so when a panel happened, you could get in, you'd line up, you could get in, and you could line up at any time for any panel. They allowed that. They had sequestered off areas set up for the lines, and then they'd let you in when the doors opened for that particular panel. And I remember I was one of the first guys in line for Tim, because I had questions I wanted to ask him. But also I was really interested in seeing the Doctor Who panel. I was really interested in seeing the Independent Comics panel. I was really interested in a lot of that other stuff. But the coolest panel, the biggest surprise for me, one of the most interesting panels I got to go see was the panel that they had on Sunday for Giancarlo Esposito. Giancarlo Esposito, you'll probably know from Breaking Bad, Once Upon a Time. He does a lot of television. My father would probably recognize him because he played Ali's father in the movie Ali. Hearing him talk and the information that he provided about himself, about his family, the stuff that he was talking about, it was really, really exciting. I don't know if you guys are Breaking Bad, but this is what he's saying about Breaking Bad. I know that he died in Breaking Bad, spoilers, but he did say that he has been approached and he is throwing around ideas with AMC for possibly doing a prequel Breaking Bad series about the rise of Gus. That has been on the table. He is talking about that sort of thing. I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but he did say that it is an idea that AMC, he's been kicking around with AMC, and something that he really said he would like to do. Obviously, they are talking about spin-offs for his other series, possibilities with that happening. The coolest advice that he said, at least that really resonated with me on that day, was some advice that he kind of got when he worked on doing the series Miami Vice. He comes from the man is Italian. Like he basically described himself as half black, half African, half African American, half Italian, basically. Which awesome. Me, I'm Italian. Awesome. And he did say he came from Italy to be here. He has a lot of experience in theater, films, television, that sort of thing. Love to see you do video games, Giancarlo. It'd be really exciting to see you do video games. But what he said was he typically would when he would do roles, and I have this problem, as I'm sure you guys have seen, he talks with his hands, basically. I've been told that's something that the Italians do. And my apologies. But the thing that he said that really surprised me was what he learned from a young Edward James Olmos, which was sometimes you kind of just have to be even. Sometimes you don't, you have to avoid the opportunity, avoid the desire to become excited. Give an even tone, give an even performance. That's really something. And that stuck with him. And he basically said, and I'll relay this information to you, guys, because it really resonated with me. And if you guys want to hear it, I'll tell you, because this really did resonate with me. Take the time to be silent sometimes. Sometimes, in a moment, you got to take the time just for silence. Just to silence, to focus yourself. And how you choose to express that silence is up to you, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through prayer, whether it be through some other just silence itself. That's your business. But silence has a way of when you silent, you can hear. You know, you can focus and you can hear the information that's being provided for you, and that resonated with me quite a bit, and I was really appreciative for that advice. It was an awesome panel to check out. It really was. There were also a lot of cosplayers at the event. There was a cosplay panel. There were a lot of cosplay celebrities there. Bethany Maniac, Belle Cher, a bunch of cosplay. There were cosplay. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Competitions. That's it. Gosh, my brain isn't working right now. There were cosplay competitions. It was really cool to see everybody dressed up in the event and the venue. I think probably the most elaborate that I saw is I literally saw one person walking around in a full-sized horse, and by horse I mean armored horse outfit. I don't know how they were able to get it into the venue, but the front half was obviously a person. And basically the back half were wheels, and it was an armored horse, like a horse robot or something like that. That was the coolest cosplay that I saw, the most elaborate cosplay that I saw. Other cosplays, there were people dressed up like the Pokemon trainer. There was a girl walking around dressed as Misty. I think she might have been famous. I couldn't quite tell. I was too afraid to ask her. But she looked a little bit familiar, like I had seen her doing cosplay in the past. I think she might have been famous. I don't know. There was a guy. When at first I saw him, he was a nice guy. I actually did ask him about his costume. I thought he was dressed up as Ace Ventura. He said he was actually dressed up as the transitional version of Max Payne, like the pre-Max Payne from Max Payne 3 before he shaved his head off. Because the guy did the thing that threw me off was the guy had a head of hair basically, which kind of looked a little bit like Jim Carrey's, and he was walking around in a Hawaiian shirt. And he said, "No, I'm not Ace Ventura, but thanks for asking. I'm actually Max Payne. I'm Max Payne from Max Payne 3 before he shaved his head off," which was cool. It was cool to see somebody who was actually cosplaying as Max Payne. For me, I do the cosplay for Max Payne. I've done Max Payne cosplay, typically Halloween. I save it for Halloween, but I've done Max Payne 1. I do the Max Payne 1 cosplay. That for me is Max Payne, but that's just me. For gaming, on the gaming side, there was a huge setup. Friendly Fire Games had a whole setup in the site. It was a perfect place to hang out. On the first day, there weren't really places to sit. People were kind of just sitting down on the floor, but it was a bit of a cool sequestered off area next to the panel rooms that you could kind of chill out in. On the second day, they did add chairs to the spot, so you could sit down and catch a break. And it was cool because it was easy in, easy out. It was marked. It was sectioned off, but it was still easy to access in and out basically. To kind of walk, and if you wanted to catch a break, you can come in. You can watch the League of Legends event. They had an awesome setup for the League of Legends. There were high-powered PCs at almost probably a dozen of them set up. And there was a big screen that was set up for monitoring. And they had two guys that were set up basically monitoring the event and commenting on it. It was almost like you were watching the ending of The Wizard or something like that, the way they were really into it on their microphones. A little bit disrupted some of the panels, but it was okay. The guys that were on the panel were very professional. I knew that I was there a lot of the time, not just to watch League of Legends. I wish they could have brought in new games. I think that with the hardware setups that they had, they could have run other tournaments, but for some odd reason, maybe it might have been a legal reason, they only had the license to do a League of Legends tournament, in which case I understand that. I wish they could have done other tournaments and other events. It could have been nice to do a LAN for Unreal Tournament or Quake or something like that. It would have been nice to see that. Heck, or Counter-Strike, some other type. It would have been nice to see other games played on those setups. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but they chose basically just to use League of Legends. But it was still cool. And I do like how it was set up, in that you could kind of come in, you could chill, you could watch the event, and you could leave. So overall, what did I think of the event? It was unlike anything really I had ever seen before. I got to give props to the Hartford Comic Con organizers for having it. I got to give props to the guys for, I want to give thanks to everybody for letting me in, the organizers for letting me in, letting me report on this, letting me relay this stuff that happened to you guys who were not able to see it themselves. And for those of you who were there, hope I got this chance to run into you or something like that. But for those of you, maybe hopefully this sparks some memories of some good times. Will I go again? Well, probably. If the time is right and the organizers want me back, I'd be more than happy to return. It was a cool time. It was certainly unlike anything that I've seen in this state. I think they were going for their own thing. It was really exciting to see. The first thing I did when I saw that Batmobile was tweet a picture of it to the Arkham guys, the Arkham developers, and say, hey, why aren't we driving this in the next Arkham game? I never got a response to that one, but who knows. Until next time, guys, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Take care. This is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Over and out.